Without the support of compassionate volunteers, not-for-profit agencies in our community would struggle to successfully provide services to those who need the most. April is National Volunteer Month. This is a time for us to celebrate those who give up their time and talents to make a difference. Here to tell us more is the manager of Council on Aging's volunteer program, Betty McLeroy. Good morning, Betty. We're really excited to have you, and of course we're cutting up and already causing trouble this morning, so we know it's going to be fun.
Right. Like I said, if it's not fun, it's not worth doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We agree. We agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so first things first, if you could tell us just a little bit about how you ended up at Council on Aging, because I think it's a great story to sort of tie into what you're here for.
Well, I met John Clark back in 1972. We both were volunteering at an agency in town, brand new agency that opened up, and he served on our board of directors. And so that's how I met him and found out about the Council on Aging. And then as time went by, and I actually was a volunteer there myself for about 15 years. And then I had to go to work for a living. And so, he mentioned that, you know, he had positions, but I had to go get my college degree. So 4 years later, I graduated, and just before I turned 50, life begins at 80, you know. And I applied for the job, and I became the director of the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, which we no longer, United Way now runs that program, but I did that for 15 years, and then I retired for 4 years. And now I'm back.
And you wanted to be back.
I'm back part-time. I'll tell you about that later. And there's a story to tell about that, but I don't have time because, anyway. And so, and the bottom line is this, like I said, I grew up and I realized how precious the elderly were, and how unappreciated and often forgotten population. And my heart just went out to them, and I love being able to help, because I recruit volunteers that actually go out and do services for the elderly, and they do it free, of course. And I'm happy to do it. And working with volunteers, it's like helping the elderly and working with volunteers, two of the best things in the world you can do, really.
Well, and you kind of alluded to it, but of course we know that you're the manager of the volunteer program at Council on Aging. So why is that so rewarding?
Well, first of all, like I said, volunteers, working with volunteers, they're really special people. They don't ask for pay, they work free, and they don't expect anything. But most of the people that I work with are very conscientious, caring about what they do. And when you are, you know, the woman who was here before earlier, talking about happiness, it says, I think it's in the Bible, it says, happiness comes from helping others. And it's really true. So, and I love helping other people. That's what it's all about. And so here I am.
Well, and as you know, because you're the director of the volunteer program, that April is National Volunteer Month. So why is volunteerism so important? We know that there are benefits both to the volunteer and the person or the organization receiving the help.
Why are volunteers so special?
Well, why is volunteerism important?
Oh, it is, because if all the volunteers went on strike in this community, forget it. I mean, places would shut down.
Right.
The volunteers are a integral part of what makes this community tick, believe me. And so it's very important for survival for a lot of agencies, and it's a wonderful thing for people to do. That's another thing about happiness. You know, if you never have to sit at home and do nothing. There's always something that you can get out and get involved in, and it's very important because one of the benefits is you live longer too. They've done research and found, and that's true. Look at me. Anyway,
and you look great in your shiny shirt.
Oh, thank you. My sparkly. But volunteers are very, very special people, and I love the opportunity to get to know them and work with them, and they really care. It's amazing how conscientious they are and wonderful about the people that they're serving. And when one of our clients expresses really happiness for something that the volunteer does for them, it makes them feel like, I don't know who's happier, the client for the volunteer. It's beautiful. It's a win-win situation. It really
we've
is.
definitely heard that from some of our volunteers. I mean, one of our volunteers, Patty Bryan
Oh,
with the
Patty.
retreat, she talks about how she leaves there singing, which I think is a really interesting way to describe her experience, because she's so happy that she was able to help somebody else and give back. And you've talked about this. What is the impact of volunteerism on an organization or a client?
Well, I think the impact is that they can actually inspire us, really, us working people. And they're also providing services that we probably wouldn't be able to do if they weren't there. Like I said, well, they inspire us. They really do. At least they inspire me. And I'm very defensive about my volunteers. You better treat them. You better treat them like they're right. Yeah, right. And because really, they get, and all you have to do is say thank you. That's the only thing they're really looking for. And it's important to do that. And so I always try to make sure I let them know how much I appreciate what they're doing, because they don't have to do it. They can, anytime they want, they can be gone. And they get, I was that way. Like I said, I was a volunteer for 15 years. I became the volunteer director of the agency. So I know what it's like, and I know what you get from it, And I also know what volunteers can do. And so I respect them a lot, and I appreciate them a lot. And I hope they know that, when I communicate with them.
Well, speaking of appreciating and recognition, you have an event coming up in May. Tell us a little bit about that and why recognition is so important for our volunteers.
Well, we are going to have on the 22nd of May, we are going to have a volunteer recognition event. And it's a luncheon. And we'll have entertainment.
Who doesn't love lunch?
I know, and the lunch they have here is delicious. In fact, last year everybody was asking for recipes, so we'll probably have the same menu. But and it's a way to publicly thank them, and we try to. We don't have a big budget, but we try to at least let them know that we appreciate them. That's the most important thing. I think anybody who's serving in any way likes to know that they're appreciated. And this is a formal way of doing it. Like I said, thank you is the most important, but this is a formal way of doing it.
Well, we have plenty of opportunities at Council on Aging for folks to get involved. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about how someone can get plugged in if they're interested, now that they've heard all the great things going on at Council on Aging?
Well, they need to contact me. Call me. I only work part-time now, but you can reach me, and I usually give up my private line, which I don't mind if you want me to share it. I'd be happy to. But you have our number, I'm sure.
Yes, 432-1475.
Exactly. And they call us, and I will sign them up for a volunteer information session and give them an overview of what the agency is, what the agency does, what our values are, I'm trying to think of our impact statement, and also let them know a little bit of the kind of things that they could become involved in.
Right, so they're not thrown in the mix without any understanding of what we're doing in the community, so that's great.
Right, they need to know that.
Yeah. Well, Betty, thank you so much for coming on this show. We really appreciate it, and of course, we hope that this encourages folks to get involved, and they can call you, and you'll be there to answer their call.
I'll be glad to, yes.
Thank you, Betty.
You're welcome.